Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP28 in Dubai. Ambitious, just together.
Perfecto.
It's not working? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. We here will be providing interpretation. So, if you need interpretation from Spanish to English, please get your device over there in the main entrance. And we'll start the event right now. Welcome to our panel on enhancing adaptation and resilience, a Latin American perspective. My name is Audrey. I am a scholar from Latin America Youth Climate Scholarships, and also I'm a Brazilian climate risk consultant. And here, it's a pleasure to be here with you today as a moderator of this event. And in this panel, we will discuss Latin American experience in strengthening climate adaptation strategies and the main issues to be addressed to ensure a fair future for all the generations, genders, cultural and racial identities. In this panel, we will be honored to have the expertise of our four incredible panelists, each bringing a unique, in-depth, and valuable view on the topic of adaptation and resilience in different contexts and regions of Latin America. First, we will be starting with Flavia, co-founder of La Clima. She has extensive experience at climate advocacy and climate justice and adaptation projects, having led initiatives aimed to ensure that the solutions adopted to tackle climate change are fair and take into account the needs of the most vulnerable communities across Latin America in Brazil. So next, we will have three panelists of the Latin American Youth Climate Scholarship, a program designed to promote the inclusion of and the effective participation of young Black, Indigenous, and people of color in international climate conference. Starting with Majo, after Flavia, of course, and a member of the Quechua Serena community and a member of the first indigenous guard led by a woman called Yuturi Warmi in the Equatorial Amazon. Majo brings with her not only the cultural richness and answers of her people, but also a unique perspective of how indigenous communities are facing and adapting to environmental change in the Amazon region. And next up, we will have Wara, that is a Bolivian expert in food security and founder of Musa Ecolab, Slow Food Bolivianos, leaders for food security and sovereignty, and Green Voice. Her expertise is crucial, especially considering the ever-increasing challenge related to food production in a climate change scenario and its consequence for food security throughout Latin America. And the last one would be Valeria, architect, urban planner, and sustainable cities activist. Her work is essential to understand how urban areas are adapting and preparing for the challenge of the future events, especially with regard to infrastructure and urban planning. Now I would like to give the floor to Flavia. You have 10 minutes each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I know it's quite early morning now, but I'm such a pleasure to be in that table with so many amazing women right here advocating for climate justice and climate change. I've been working with climate change issue for a while, focused mostly on climate justice. And I think I'm going to just bring a broad perspective about Brazil and how the adaptation plan is developing in Brazil from domestic level. We know through the negotiations level, adaptation at this COP, we don't have the best news still. I do hope we can move forward on that, actually. But I think we do have the homework here at COP, but also we have our homework every year after COP. And how can we enhance climate adaptation on the ground? And as much as we go on the ground, bigger are the challenges. but you have to face it. And when you are facing an inequality country as Brazil or other developing countries as well, the challenges are even bigger, because as much as you go deeper on the agenda, you realize it's more about a social issue than an environmental one. And before starting talking about like the adaptation measures in like developing specific technologies for it, you have to understand the social issues behind it. I'm going to bring an example here for that I've been working together with Favela da Maré. It's a slum in Rio de Janeiro. It's a huge one, and there is like the civil society is always bustling there, working a lot in order to bring solutions for public policies, for example. And we developed together, of course, with them. I was the one just like pushing the agenda, but they are the ones with the voices and the ones who added on that letter that we call the first human rights letters. I have to translate in Portuguese now. It's the Carta dos Direitos Climáticos da Maré, meaning the letter of the climate rights of Favela da Maré, of Maré slums. And it was such an interesting journey, because going to the territory in an urban area that is like there is no green coverage, there is no water access for everyone, there is no like food security at all. It's challenging to address environmental issues. That's why climate change is so necessary. I see climate justice as a tool to humanize climate change. And if you do not understand climate justice as that kind of tool, we cannot bring in a transversal way to develop the agenda. And that's why we did, while we were developing that specific letter. That letter, the meaning was mainly to show the public and the public sector mainly to address more focused climate policies in the territory. But for all the security issues that we have going on there, for example, we had a lot of problems to address specific subjects. So it's impossible to avoid that. And we must have and open a safe space for discussion. Without that safe space, we are not going to be able to hear the voices of those who we need to hear more. And this is just one tiny, tiny example in Brazil. We do have, like, we are continental. We have so many issues going on right now with, for example, in the Amazon, with the draw of the river. I think we all, maybe, I don't know if you have seen that on the news, but we have like the river now, it's going up, but still we have the worst draw in history of Brazil. And when you look at the communities who lives around and who need to and just survive fishing, or like the roads right there are not roads we're used to see, like here in Dubai, for example, it's by boat. So we see loads of communities isolated because of that situation. And also because of the rain system that was not balanced anymore because of the droughts. If you go to local farmers, we do have a lot of problem they're facing as well. We have loads of social issues happening in Brazil regarding climate change effects. And we have to be careful I'm pretty sure everyone here has a brilliant idea about how to address climate change, but I'm not so sure if everyone here does the homework, to sit down and to listen to those who are in the local position of developing things. And we must develop this skill. We must develop this way of, okay, I'm gonna sitting down and I'm gonna listen to it. I'm here as a tool to bring some, key specific technologies or tools to help you to address the subject. I think the most important thing that I want to bring here in my speech is just about the importance of listening. The importance of listening and the importance of addressing climate justice as a tool to humanize climate change. It's not an easy task, but it's a necessary one. And I do hope that everyone here who is willing to address climate change bring that aspect of listening to those instead of speaking more than those who are in the local position to develop the climate change agenda on the ground. we do have in Brazil already climate mitigations happening, but in a way, the climate migrations that's going on a lot, and that number is going to increase over and over throughout the world. Boundaries that we know as the territory, we get to know the world right now, is not going to be the same in few years from now. So we, like the status quo that we are used to see and that we are used to live into it, is changing a lot. So I know it's scary, and mainly for the youth. I've been like, a lot of young people come to me with climate anxiety and things like that, but at the same time, we are facing something that's not beautiful at all. We have like a huge open windows of opportunities to develop and to walk through the transformation and regeneration. So as much as we feel scared about it, let's take that fear and change into action in order to move forward with the agenda. And of course, we are not alone. So another thing that I see a lot on the ground working with adaptation, it's how mainly women, but leader communities, they feel so alone on addressing climate change, but we are not. And I think once you are there listening and connecting those people with a broader network, or showing them they are connected with so many other movements throughout their country and the world, they are not feeling alone anymore. And it sounds silly, but that's really important. It's the feeling of being part of something bigger, you know, in a sense that, okay, I'm not fighting that fight just by myself. And as much as you go to the ground, that feeling is the main feeling that you face, is the feeling that, oh my God, no one is looking at me, no one is hearing me. So how can I move forward on that? That's another aspect of climate adaptation that I've been feeling as in the past years while I'm working on the ground. And us being here at COP, from many of you, not the first one, or maybe the first one, it's like we have the homework coming back home for those who weren't able to come here to create that bridge and make that connection, to show them that they are not alone facing that. And of course, those bridges are important to get access to finance, and all other things are really important to develop the projects on the ground. Like adaptation, climate justice is something that really hit my heart. So I could be talking here with a lot of examples and a lot of challenges that we are facing daily, mainly in Brazil, but of course it's the challenge that the entire world faces. And just one last part so we can hear the other panelists here. One thing that I've seen and that worries me a little bit regarding climate adaptation and when we see climate justice, it's the willing of have one description about it. Climate adaptation is, climate justice is. It's not is. Like what the person faces in the territory, it's quite peculiar. Of course, we have like a broader sense of the big challenges, but when you go to the ground, the challenges that people face on the ground is peculiar. So we have to stop thinking that climate justice or climate adaptation is one specific thing. Because when you put a name on it, it's automatically an exclusion of all other thousands and thousands of names that we could rename it. So we must just be careful about this and looking at climate justice and adaptation as a tool to bring more like safe space and bridges and tools to the ground. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass to my next colleague.
Hello everyone, my name is Majo Andrade Cerda. I'm from the Quichua people of Serena in the Ecuadorian Amazon. I've been listening to Flavia all this time, and I'm saying in my mind, we are repeating again words and words, but we actually are doing action back home. In Ecuador, we are facing the biggest era of droughts, at the point that we don't have electricity in the entire country. So we have to subsidize even from Colombia. And when we have more resources than Colombia, it's quite hard to say we have to adapt to that. And it's because our rivers are not having enough water. The flow, it's very, very low, and we cannot have energy. But in indigenous communities, this impact is not that hard. Because in indigenous communities, we don't really have electricity. In farther communities, you don't have even access by road. You have to walk, or you have to travel by a boat for 4, 5, 7 hours to get there. So in that sense, indigenous communities show again that we are resilient to that kind of lack of energy. But actually, what is affecting us the most is that our rivers are getting lower, and we don't have enough water to live. Because with water, we do a lot of things. With the only river that we have, we took to cook, to swim, to shower, to do everything. And we don't have it anymore. But the way we are adapting, it's saying we are present, we are doing our presence here. When you see an indigenous community, it means that they have to struggle a lot to be there. And we are adapting our food systems, our traditional knowledge to capture all the things that we need to live in the area our ancestors lived. So, for example, with the low, now that we don't have water, we are looking for water, even in the springs that are up in the mountains. But we are bringing it to the communities, and we can say that's example how we are doing adaptation, but it's in our own terms. It's always the creativity, the knowledge that indigenous peoples have back in that communities. I have visited them, and it's really hard for them to get water. And authorities are not doing those kind of efforts because it's too expensive for them. They stated that. They say, we don't have the subsidies to go by plane to that community, so sorry. And that's a very bad thing in all the countries that have indigenous peoples, because they don't prioritize our knowledge systems that are the ones that have been resilient for thousands of years. And actually, we have to adapt, not because we do something against climate. It's because somebody else in big cities, in this structure that it's not friendly with the environment, are hurting our Mother Earth. And we have to do all of those things to survive, to keep surviving, despite having all the biodiversity that we have. We are protecting enormous areas of forest, mainly rainforest. And now, in this kind of events, we are just talking about carbon markets, carbon offsets. We are a new source of people is just seeing our territories, our ways of life, as part of a market, when we are not a merchandise. We are living. All our spirits in the forest are living. They are beings. So when I feel that my river is getting drought, it's suffering because of the drought, I'm feeling something inside of me. This climate anxiety that you were saying, it's reflecting also how indigenous youth are feeling in their areas. No more forests, no more good rivers. And we have to call us defenders now, just because somebody else, someone else, is doing something against us without realizing it. Because this system is creating the struggles that indigenous peoples, indigenous youth are suffering back in our territories. And we don't know what is going to happen, because here in these conversations too, the priority is to talk about science, how to adapt with new technologies to climate change. But they are not recognizing our traditional knowledge. I have to learn this foreign language, this colonizer language, just to defend my land, to defend my people. Because if I'm not doing this, who else is going to do it for me? And it's hard, because I have to travel a lot. And since now I'm the new leader of the economics in the Council for Indigenous Peoples in the Ecuadorian Amazon, I have a new position. The adults, our elders, are seeing in me someone that can help. This new generation has the capacities to do that. And I have to sacrifice a lot, actually. I have to leave my community first. Sometimes forget my language, my indigenous language. And one of the main aspects, I have to grow up. Not enjoying my childhood, not enjoying my teenager days, and now I have to fight because of my people. And I know a lot of indigenous leaders, indigenous young leaders, have to face these kind of things, because our elders feel like they have to give someone else this role to leader in this system that they don't know. They don't know how to get to these spaces. They don't know what a carbon market is. Even I don't know, but I have to tell them and advise them what it is. And it's very, very, very hard, because I'm adapting myself to climate change, when I should enjoy my environment, my territory. In my land, I have 2 big rivers, and I have to enjoy that. But no, here I am, because climate change is real. But what we can say here is to support indigenous communities, the resilience that we have is the best key that we can do right now. If we keep thinking that the environment, nature is just part of these markets, I think we are not going to do any progress. Despite everything, we are going to stay there. We survived for hundreds of years as indigenous peoples. And with new leadership from indigenous youth, I think we are going to survive more years. But it's not fair. We have to not survive. We have just to live. Thank you.
Wara, please. You have 10 minutes.
Hola. Okay. Well, I am very inspired because of the speeches of all of you, and yeah, I will speak in English, I think, because sometimes young people and indigenous young people do not have the option to be activists. They have to defend their territories. We don't choose to be an activist or to be people who is learning about climate change because it's a theme of our schools. No, we are defenders. And that's what I want to say here. We don't choose to be an activist. We have to, because of our people, because of our families. And I am here to say that indigenous people in the area of Los Andes are facing a lot of troubles because of the Amazon area is suffering. We also suffer a lot of things. We don't have enough water. We don't have enough rain in our communities because Amazon is suffering. Our brothers and sisters in the Amazon are very stressed about this, and we share that sorrow. And what we are facing in our territories are desertification of the soils, droughts. We don't have the governance of the adaptation projects in our communities. We don't choose what is going to be the next project of our communities. The government choose that, and they think that we are going to be okay with that, but we don't choose that. We don't have that governance, and also we are struggling with mining that contaminates a lot of water in our communities, our rivers, lakes, and other water courses. And I know a specific data of my country. Near to 105 municipalities in my country are in emergency. 105 municipalities do not have enough water for their crops. And this is too much people. And we were talking about it since 2020, and the government and other institutions didn't do anything about it. Just when we are facing that kind of emergency, we are like, oh my God, we have to do something. And this is not fair for us. We have to prevent, we have to have a plan. And when I am here with all my brothers and sisters going to the negotiations about adaptation, and they do not take a decision, we are very frustrated about it. We don't have solutions, and we are facing these droughts, these problems like many years. And I would like that every negotiator could see that problems, that issues of droughts, that issues of river contaminations, and they could make some decisions faster. And in my community, we face that kind of issues in a different ways. The first one is every day, every community is praying to our grandmother that is the soil and is the nature. And even for some people, it could be strange. For us, it's not strange, because the Mother Earth gives us enough water and enough food for everyone. And this is very sad, because this is happening every meeting of the leaders of our communities. And it's like something usual, and it could not be usual that we are suffering or pledging for this justice to our grandmother. And even it could be sad, it gave us hope. And I think it is a characteristic of our resilience. This hope, living in a community, sharing this experience. In national plans, in our national plans, there are so many objectives about forestry, water, and also and many things, but they are not executed in a 100%. And even the leaders of our communities do not know very well what is going on about NDCs of these plans. They don't know what is that. They don't know what is UNFCCC. They don't know everything that is happening here. And the other activity that we could say is that our leaders make some projects, local projects. They use seeds that produce a lot of more and needs less water. That's the like the solution that they find. But for this reason, many native seeds are being lost. So the variety of the seeds of our community are being lost, and many generations do not know what kind of potatoes could be in our crops. So a lot of ancient knowledge of our communities are being lost too. This unseen and invisible damage is being happening in our communities in Los Andes, and yeah, that is happening in Los Andes, and I would like to raise the voice of our young people of our communities that we feel we are like connected with the Amazon and with all the areas around the world. And if one place in the world is suffering from some things because of climate change, the other is suffering too, and we are connected. So we are with you together, and I hope something could be done even with our work together. We try to get some results, but they are just for a short term, not a long term. And we get a lot of. We are very frustrated about that. So I think in our like the other opponent said, resilience cannot be defined. It depends on the context that we are living. And for our community in Los Andes, resilience means suma camaña, that is a word that is vivir bien, like live in a better way. And we are looking for it every day. And if we are not heard here, how could we live in a better way together? And yeah, that's what I want to share with all of you, and I hope we could do something about all of the things that are happening in LATAM. Thank you.
Next, Valeria. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Buenos días, bon dia. I am from the south, a city in the south of Peru called Arequipa. It's known as the second city of Peru, but I would like to highlight that in Peru, for example, there is a lot of centralization. So everything happened in Lima. Arequipa is like another world apart, but it's a beautiful city with a very historical tradition, a historical city center. I would like to invite each one of you to visit someday. I have prepared some slides to show you a reality of cities in Latin America. As an architect and urban planner, I have studied for several years by looking images, researching in maps about the urban planning of cities, the planification of cities in Latin America, with a special focus in Peru, of course, because I was studying there. I studied there. So, for example, as you can see, in Latin American cities, there are lots of contrasts. We have the urban area with buildings, with the commercial, financial zones, and we have the other side of the cities with disorganization, a lot of houses without a planification, and that caused, in a short term, I would say, problems as natural hazards and risks. For example, in Peru, landslides, floodings affect us every year, every summer. These areas without planification, because the water comes and just throws everything, and we have a lot of them, people vulnerable in these communities. In the urban side also, we have nature. We have public spaces. Some cities, for example, Lima, doesn't have many green areas. This is very known in Peru. But we have other cities in the interior side of Peru that has these natures. Building, of course, there is a disorganization in the density of the city, because we have some areas with regulations of the tall of buildings. Other areas doesn't have it. People sometimes doesn't have the information for building according the nature, according the risk of the zones. So next slide, please. Those are one of 4 of the most important cities in Peru, the biggest ones, according to the urban perspective, because in the rural areas we have communities, also smaller ones, with a lot of knowledge that can share to us, to the urban side, as all these women explain with a very inspiring way. In the urban side, we have to learn from rural communities a lot. As you can see, Lima City is overpopulated, a lot of housing. There are housing in the mountains even. These mountains areas are very risky to landslides and floodings. Cities also, Chiclayo City is a city in the coast side, so it's another region of Peru. Iquitos is in the Amazon. Some green areas are affected, severely affected by the construction, by buildings. And as urban planners, also, I have noticed during my career that in municipalities, we don't have urban development plans. So this is also another important factor when it's supporting that in knowledge transfer. And the last city, Puno City, is the biggest city in the highlands of Peru, in Puno region. This lake is the Lake Titicaca. Is the most deepest lake in the world, as far as I remember. So, as you can see, that's a urban picture in Peru we have. And next slide, please. So we have also, as I mentioned, urban life. Urban life, that's kind of picture of our public spaces in Peru. We need more green areas, of course. We lack of green areas and more spaces for what we call in urban planning, urban life, urban dynamics that will support children and young people to engage, to develop new activities, having these areas more with dynamics, with life, that makes life in cities better and with more movement. And this picture in the corner of the top side behind urban life, it's a picture of the historical city centers. In Latin America, we have a lot of history in our architecture, and we need also more dynamics and life and revitalization of those areas. Of course, respecting the architecture, the heritage architecture, because it's part of our history. And those places are immersed in the city, in the downtown, to be more specific. So, regarding the question, I was asked the question to talk about how we can get the most of these spaces from COP28 to enhance, to get the most for our cities, from our experiences. So I would like to mention, for example, climate finance. With climate finance, we bring more funding for improving resilient projects according adaptation for our cities. Also, I would like to highlight technology transfer. I have been visiting a lot the Innovation and Technology Pavilion because I am a very technical person. And sorry, it's like I'm a nerd in all these things. And I would like to highlight, for example, dashboards, web application, apps for mobile phone, how we can bring those technologies to the improvement of urban life, of life in communities. This is so important. I have seen dashboards for measure of greenhouse gas emissions, but we need also to use guidelines, the urban guidelines, how to make life in cities more sustainable, how we can measure the life in cities according a perspective. For example, just for mention an example, LEED from US Green Building Council. They have a framework with data for mention some areas: water management, natural ecosystems, quality of life, measure of energy systems. How we can bring that to a dashboard or to a technology or to a application and measure the life in cities and the life in communities also, in rural communities. We can give this technology to municipalities, to the public institutions. We can bring all these people from the academia. I work with a lot of software engineers, data scientists, all these technical people. They are not in these spaces. In all these days, I haven't talked with no software engineer, for example. That is my challenge for this COP, meeting an engineer here. We need to bring these people with all this technical knowledge to these spaces for making developing projects. And as I talk with C40 Youth Hub, there are here lots of people from the policy side. We need people from the technical side. We need conversations between both areas, and intersections. I like very much the concept of intersections because we both can work to develop projects that will eventually benefit our cities, our rural communities in general in Latin America. Also, I would like to highlight the importance of giving more Latin young people the opportunity to them for be here in these spaces, because we have knowledge, we have traditions from Latin America, we have, as the title of this panel, we have a new perspective to share. And this also is so important. Apart from that, I would like to highlight, for example, organizations, ISOCARP, International Society of City and Regional Planning, US Green Building Council people are here also. Also people from the policy side. We need all of them in this conversation for make the life in Latin America better. In Latin America, there are lots of talent, I'm sure. I'm very inspired with these women I have met in this conference. And also in Latin America, we have a new way of seeing life based on our experience, our story, and our traditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all the impactful speeches. This is a very rich space where we can share our experience, and I'm very happy that you are all here. Now I would like to open the floor to the audience if you have some questions, and if you don't, we do have. So, does someone want to talk with us? Ask something? Do you have questions?
Thank you. My name is Verena Römer. I'm German and living in Argentina. We're working together with different communities and also regions in Buenos Aires City, which is a really high-dense population, and then also in Corrientes, close to the Paraná River. So we have the impact of what's happening in Brazil is always affecting us, and we had the same problem with drought and wildfire. I wanted to ask you on your experiences how you coordinate between national, provincial, and local governments' activities for climate action, if there are any experiences to get down the NDCs on the ground, and how you what kind of tools to communicate and make this multi-level stakeholder actions you have in your countries.
You can go, Fabio, first.
I think now, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm gonna bring some examples that I've been working in Brazil on the ground in order to enhance like those multi-level stakeholders, from even like the mayors and city hall and deputies and local communities, in order to create public policies regarding climate adaptation. The first tool we must understand when you are going locally, we need the basis about inventory, risk and vulnerability assessment in order to develop the climate action plan. I think this is like one important piece that with the climate adaptation plan being ambitious, we know exactly the main priorities we should tackle. But once we know kind of the way to develop this, it's like how we measure that and how we focus on those specific policies is when we have to open the floor, to the community. So in order to bring them, and because like you must have this both sides. One thing is that the science showing up like what we must mitigate first. But the other hand is what the locals are saying that they're facing right now. And we must do that match. And once that match is done, we know exactly which specific policy we must focus on. There is like loads of tools that we can use to have this kind of conversation. But it's really hard to say like that one just example is going to work for everyone. It depends. It depends the connection, the public policies, the political people on that ground has with that local community. Sometimes they're not that good. Normally they're not that good because there's no connection at all. Sometimes it's through the university that we can do that. Sometimes it's through the local leader. It depends on each specific situation. But it's really hard just to start a conversation without knowing where we should go. So that's why we have to step back and understand if the private and public sector, they already have like financing the tools to developing the climate adaptation plan. And through that, having like that open floor to together with all stakeholders in that city or in that neighborhood, in that community, to understand which kind of policies we should focus. Otherwise, we are going to be lost quite fast, and we won't be able to have anything done on the floor, because it's not just about understanding and focus on one specific policy, but how can we develop that? And of course, if you don't have this specific point already settled, all the conversations and all the tasks that it has been done so far won't move forward, because people are not focused on to understand where exactly we must go. It's really the nuance of that. It's quite easy to get lost because there's a lot to do. But if we don't have those steps back, we won't be able to have anything done on the floor.
If I can say something, at least in Ecuador, the government has realized that it has to work with indigenous communities. And mainly, for example, with the NDCs, they created an institution within the Minister of Environment, and they do mainly. The program is called Pro Amazonia, and it means they have to implement some projects in the Amazon to help with the contributions within the NDC system, right? In the NDC plan. So mainly what they are focusing now, it's doing economics within indigenous communities. But mainly I can say, for me, that's not the right answer, because you are fomenting a new way of having this structure of economics that is not quite good in the entire world. Capitalism made climate change possible. So we have to change that aspect too, by having indigenous communities, mainly indigenous women, have empowered of what they are doing back in their communities. It's a really good contribution to be independent and to not let any extractive industries come into the territories. Why? Because indigenous women, indigenous girls are the guardians of the knowledge that we have. And these kind of programs are helping, well, trying to help this kind of vision. But we have to rethink on a new strategy, because when we are talking about NDCs, we have to talk about real programs. Not getting more deforestation areas, which means we have to give indigenous peoples the tenure of the land. If we, as indigenous peoples, don't have land to protect with the rights that we have, it means collective rights, the tenure of the land, the self-governance of the territory, of the waters, of the food systems. We don't have a way to protect our lands, our territories. So what we need to do, and since now I'm part of this new council, is to restructure the way even the government is thinking locally. Because if indigenous communities are strengthened on how they do governance on their territory and in terms of the government, we can create something really special to contribute to the NDCs. Because again, the government is trying to work with our bases, but they are lacking just this kind of ideas. It's because in the terms of the funding that we are getting, the climate funds, they said, oh, okay, create new strategies to compromise that we don't have deforestation. And yes, women are doing shampoos with products from our jungle, our rainforest, or doing some tourism, but it's not actually the real step to take. We have to restructure the way we think about the Amazon and the indigenous communities. Thanks.
Hi, I think this question is more for Valeria. You talked about the contrast in urbanization in Latin America, and I wonder how the inequality is connected to these things, because we can see how in many places in Latin America, we are living in a process of gentrification from white people to popular neighborhoods, and suddenly these popular neighborhoods is like passed to a very popular zone, to zone with bigger parks, with bigger sun areas, green areas, and it looks like only the adaptation and the good things, the sun greens, is only for the rich people. So how is connected this urbanization to inequality?
Thank you for your question. Actually, this is a challenge, I think, for most of the municipalities in Latin America, for the architects, also urban planners, because sometimes even, I remember in architecture school, we had the task to develop urban projects, but considering as an example, as you mentioned, the rich zones, with the buildings, with the financial areas. So inequality that there, it happens. It's a reality. I would say, I would like to highlight, for example, in academia, there are many research and theses focusing in developing urban projects, like, for example, a culture center, innovation center for technology transfer, or a school, even a school, a hospital, in those areas that are, where the lack of necessities, of services, it's a reality, happens. So in my opinion, I think we have that projects developed in the paper. They exist, they are designs, they are even amazing urban planning designs I have seen in Peru, in Lima, in Arequipa also. But in the reality, in practice, they are not developed, they are not built. So to recall, like, inequality there, we need to focus more action and have the eyes on those spaces. Actually, as a way of seeing, as an architect, those spaces, the public life and the public spaces are not well developed there. They lack of maintenance. There are many things that needs to be built in those areas. And also, we need as a society to be more inclusive, because people, mobility around cities, they have the right, to be in different areas. They walk and travel through public transportations in different areas of the cities. And as a cities, we need to be together, like a city without good places and bad places. And we don't deserve places for risk. Even we don't deserve to call places like, oh no, this is a bad neighborhood, don't go there. No, we need to revitalize these areas to make people have the right to transit, everywhere. And also as a country, even in a more urban, more far perspective, as a country, we deserve in Latin America to have developed cities, not only the capital and 2-3 more cities, just more, because we have diversity, we have different regions, different environments, coast, highlands, Amazon, for just mentioned. Those are the most three important. Those are the 3 regions of Peru. And thank you for highlighting this topic, because this team can be seen as fancy, like we show the best pictures of cities, of public spaces, but city is more. And the people who live in those that we called bad neighborhoods or risky neighborhoods, they deserve to have a developed public space and better urban life. So thank you so much for your question.
Então, eu levantei o braço, não sei se vai ter um problema por conta da interpretação.
Hello? Hi. Daniela will speak in Portuguese. We will have consecutive interpretation afterwards.
Então, assim, eu fiquei muito feliz de estar aqui escutando vocês. Um painel majoritariamente de mulheres, meninas, e isso evidencia o que a gente vê no dia a dia, que as mulheres estão na linha de frente nessa guerra climática. Em 2019, lá no meu município, eu venho lá da Amazônia brasileira, desculpa, não mesmo. Em 2019, a gente criou um movimento chamado Amazônia Centro do Mundo, que foi uma provocação para ativistas europeus, organizações do Sul, cientistas, para dizer o seguinte, que a centralidade do debate ela não deve ficar em Washington, nem em Alphaville. Sabe por quê? Porque a centralidade, o debate, quem tem muitos anos a ensinar é quem está lá na Maré, é quem está em Altamira. Nós somos a centralidade. Nós temos muito o que ensinar para o mundo. Nós temos intelectuais da floresta. São os pescadores. Temos intelectuais na maré. A gente precisa deslocar o que é centro e o que é periferia. A gente não é periferia. A gente está no centro. E isso é importante a gente expandir, compartilhar com todo mundo. Então, eu queria que vocês comentassem um pouco disso. E uma outra coisa que eu queria comentar é que a fala da Marro me tocou muito, porque a gente que vem dessa experiência de favela, de rio, de floresta, a gente tem a nossa infância negada. E hoje é um tópico aqui das crianças. Então, como também esses impactos dos grandes empreendimentos, dessa guerra climática, ela afeta a nossa existência. A gente deixa de ser criança porque a gente não pode ser mais criança, a gente tem que lutar para o nosso futuro. Eu estou traduzindo? Eu quebro meu pensamento. Mas é isso, então, como que a gente... Porque eu acho que tem que ser pautado também isso dentro desses debates da ONU, que a gente não pode ter o nosso direito à infância negado. Então, não há direitos humanos sem justiça climática. Então, eu estou muito feliz e é isso que eu queria trazer para vocês.
My name is Daniela. I come from Pará. Altamira, first of all, I would like to say I'm very, very happy to see a panel with this, with all women, and it means that women are at the center and we are leading this transformation. In 2019, we created a project that is called Amazonia, the Center of the World, and it was a provocation because all these debates are happening and they should have Amazonia as the center. These debates and this decision-making process should not be made in Washington, in the United States, in Alphaville, because we have this knowledge, and we are the center of this discussion. And we are here at Maré or at Altamira, and we are the center. We have a lot of intellectuals. We have intellectuals at Maré. We have intellectuals that are fishermen. We have intellectuals at the periphery zones, at the slums. So this should be the center. We should be the center of the discussion. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I was very emotive when hearing Valeria talking, and I want to talk about that. And I was very emotive about Mahos when she was saying about that, because we feel the same. We are having our childhood denied and stolen from us, and we are having to become activists. So we need to comment, and I wanted to ask you to comment on the impacts of those big enterprises that are stealing our childhood. And today is the Children's Day here, as I heard. And this has to be discussed at UN spaces because we have had our childhood stolen from us. We are having our rights being denied. And this must be discussed at UN spaces. So if you can comment on that.
Who wants to start? Maho, maybe?
I can comment just that I think Jude is here because we want to make changes and we have the capacity to do that. And as I can see in the room, there's just some people listening. And that's why we are here also, to learn more about this process, to understand better the negotiations, to talk with actors that can help us. It seems like when indigenous peoples or people of color are talking here, and especially youth, the system don't want to hear us because it's not part of their plan. It's not what they know, and they feel uncomfortable when they don't see what they want to see. But we are going to be here. We stayed here before. We will be here forever, resisting, surviving, and living. Thank you.
Who wants to talk? Water?
I wanted to answer not just the last question, but the other question that is about the what is the link with the government, and also, and from our perspective, we are in my community in Bolivia. We are the young people are learning how to make political incidents. They don't know very well how to do that, but they are learning, and there are different levels of our political incidents. In a local perspective, we are working with the municipality of some areas, and we are working with green journalism. I represent an institution that is making that kind of work, and in a national perspective, we are talking with deputies and our Congress. So, and the Autoridad para la Madre Tierra, that is an institution, local institution that works for these topics, and they are here at COP, and they are working with us. But it is the political incidents or the work that my partner says. It takes a lot of time, not just 1 month, 1 year. It is like 3 years and so on, and that's why I consider that the work here is very important, but in a local and national way, it is very important also. And many ONGs like the European Union and other German Foundation. In the German Foundation was the founders of the funding institution that makes that political incidents capacity building for young people. And yeah, I'm very thankful that it is. I am learning, but many of us are learning, and I hope it could be also for the young people in indigenous community, because there are no funds, and we are looking for that. We are looking for some capacity building in political incidents, because if we are living these situations, we are very shy speaking to leaders, governmental leaders, and we are like, oh, the government leaders doesn't they are very important, so they don't have enough time for us, and this is not. They are like the people who have to serve the population, us. So it has to change a lot. And yeah, that's the thing. And I don't understand the last question. Sorry, but I think that it's very important to make a local, national, and international incidents, and it is very difficult for the leaders like Majo and other leaders here to make that work in different levels, and it needs a lot of time, a lot of patience, I think, and with the project of LICE, that is Latin American Youth Climate Scholarship, we could have enough tools for that, and we are very thankful with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, does anyone want to close this question? Okay. Do we have any more? No. Do you have any questions from the audience still? Alicia? Yeah.
Oi, vocês estão me ouvindo? Hi everyone, my name is Alicia, I'm from Brazil. I know all of you, or almost all of you. I just wanted to say that I am amazed by each one of you, and I want to say that I'm biased because I'm one of the founders of Likes, and I brought some of you here together with Clara and Vivi. But there is something very important about resilience in Latin America, not only with the climate change aspect, but also the social aspects. Since yesterday, I've been thinking a lot about something that Majo said, is that we have to grow up. And most of the times, that's not a choice. And I felt like it was the same with me a few years ago. I joined my first COP when I was 17 years old, and now I'm 26. And it was a journey. What I want to tell you, it's not actually a question, is that there is a possibility for all of us to live a good life, to live a fair and just life. And I strongly believe in that, and I hope you're going to get there, and I hope you're going to get there soon. And looking at each one of you, I am confident that's going to happen. And yeah, we need to grow, and we need to be in these spaces, and we need to talk to people who most of the time do not care about what we say, but we need to be here. So I wanted to say that be strong. You know, you are all leaders. Like, I look up to each one of you so much, and I learn more than anything every single day. So I think, yeah, just be here, resist, take care of yourselves, though. This space can be so harmful, and protect your heart, because you need to be strong for your people, for your communities, and that's the resilience of Latin America. It's not coming and talking about climate solutions, it's questioning the system that we live in. You know, we are here in the German Pavilion, a continent, Europe, that has strong colonial roots. And I think there's a lot to reflect, and there's a lot of power for all of you to come here today and say the things that you said. So I'm very inspired, and thank you so much. And I hope that very soon we can all live the good life.
Yes, I'm from China because I'm studying resilient community also. I'm a PhD on agricultural economic management from Beijing Normal University, a social professor. And talk about the scholarship of the youth climate. I'm very interested in that. And I would like to have the young people, if they are interested, to come to China because my university also has very good kind of course for young people to attend for climate change, especially a lot of cities. Today I speak on the Shenzhen city, one of the very dynamic innovation city in China, south next to Hong Kong. So they are very enthusiastic on the climate change action. A lot of NGOs. As university teachers, I support them, and I have a lot of students in my university. This is Belt and Road School. We have 90 country students, 500 from around the world. So if you want to study MBA and PA, so come to China. We have those kind of program. I'm the admission officer, Miss Chen. If you want to contact me,
yeah.
Welcome. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get in contact.
Yeah, for sure. We want it. So now I will finish the session, but first I will give my speech around all that we spoke here today. So first of all, thank you very much for the impactful speech again. It brings me a lot of emotions actually, because I'm working with the very technical part of the climate risk assessment and adaptation strategies in consultants. So it's really nice to be close to this kind of perspectives in the ground from people, the young people that is really doing something for the climate. I would like to highlight as well that we are close to the limit of 1.5 degrees, and this more than ever we need to be prepared if it happens inevitably. And so for this we need to mobilize the young people for this more than ever. We face a lot of problems every day. We are working every day for it, but we are not in the high level approach to do this. Like mostly we need tickets, we need like invitations from people that are like very high level, the ministers and everything. So we want to be part of this space more than ever. Latin America has faced exploitation, have faced like the colonial problems. And now we would have this time to actually build our cities and activities, our joy. We are having to work to face the problems that we actually not did it, like mostly, but the most development countries. And we don't have fun for this because we were like exploited for more than 100 years, we have faced slavery, slavery, yeah, and we didn't have time to rebuild ourselves still, and we didn't have reparation for this. And so we are building from the zero, and now we need to face the climate change and still work on mitigation. And so we as young people, we are committed to be in this space, bringing our diversity, especially the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and LGBTQ community. We are committed to be here, to participate on this, and bring our observations and what we demand. That is a lot. We need to have funds for everything, most everything that we need. We are in the beginning of our careers. We don't have money for this, so please, this is a demand that we bring to this space. We need funds to be in this space and to contribute more in terms of approach that we have knowledge as well as people that are already in the high level stage. We have some news about adaptation, that we have a big gap right now, like of billions dollars in adaptation, and we are facing in this COP like a very empty speech, promise from the global leaders, and we are not happy about it. We want to see action, because this is happening now for us. We are facing droughts in the Amazon, which we didn't see before, and this has to be done now. So I would like to thank you very much for the speech, and I'm very happy that we could bring all the people here from the youth to actually celebrate being in this space in the youth day that Danny highlighted to us. So thank you very much, and have a nice day. The future is ancestral. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP28 in Dubai. Ambitious, just together.